Look straight.
Look straight. Big smiles. We're live. Good day, whiskey brothers and sisters. Welcome to the Whiskey Book Club's ninth book review and the third and final edition of Whisky Japan, the essential guide to the world's most exotic whiskey by Dom Roskrow. As always, we're honored to have you, the viewer, and our panel with us here today. All these cats on the side. My name's Dolph. I'm the founder of the Whiskey Book Club. I'm your host tonight. And for those new to us, I'll explain a little bitty bit what we're about. We're geeks. We're whiskey geeks. We love to share jam. We love to share passion for reading, mostly about whiskey or whiskey-related activities. And there are other whiskey book clubs out there, but none, I say none, delve so deeply into the topic with the author as we do. So the choice of our ninth book, this one right here, is based on our ongoing desire to study Japanese whiskey on a grander scale. This is the perfect book, and Dom, the perfect author to be our guest. And it is very sad. I gotta say, very sad. But this will be our final day with our guest of honor tonight, Dom Roskrow. He has been a trooper these last couple weeks, and we've been blessed to spend so much time with this prophetic writer. His notable tomes include the Whiskey Opus, 1001 Whiskeys to Try Before You Die, the World's Best Whiskeys, and this one right here, Whisky Japan, the essential guide to the world's most exotic whiskey, from this gentleman right there. That one. I'm having a hard time with the back and forth.
Yeah, you got that. Yeah, you just stuck your thumb up my nose.
Oh sorry. I didn't. On top of that, he's written the editor to Whiskey Quarterly, Whiskey Magazine, Whiskey Advocate. He's written numerous articles for newspapers, magazines. He's a keeper of the Quake, and we found out last week why he's a Kentucky Colonel. And if you don't know, go back and watch it. It's up to you to figure it out. Let's start our roundtable introductions with our names, our other platform handles, what's in our glasses tonight, and we're going alphabetically. We're going to start, as always, with Dave.
What?
Dom, not Dave. Dom's up top. What am I doing? I'm looking at Dave's beautiful face, and I'm getting carried away.
Okay, well, firstly, can I just say what lovely introduction. Very, very kind. And can I also say that you're absolutely right about your book club. This is just phenomenal. The effort you put in and the intensity of it, if you like, but also in a pleasant way. It's not a nasty thing to say, but really, really interesting. And the company's been great, and I'll miss it too. And you ever want me back on, just ask, because it's a pleasure to do it. So I'm Dom Roskrow. I've done all the things that he just said I just did. What can I say? All I can say is that I have a complex background, but I live in rural Eastern England, and I'm from Leicestershire, which is in the Midlands of England, and for the first time, I'm allowing myself to indulge whiskey tonight because this is FA Cup quarter-final weekend in the UK, and Leicester are playing Manchester United tomorrow, which is highly exciting. So I'm getting up tomorrow, having had the evening with you, and I'll cook roast dinner, and then we play 5 p.m. our time, which will be what now? 11 a.m. your time?
It'll be 10 o'clock our time. We're 7 hours back from you now.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay.
Because we jumped forward, you didn't jump.
Yeah, we will, but we haven't. You're right. This is one of the things about I've got New Zealand citizenship, and everyone says New Zealand's 12 hours different, and it's only actually 12 hours different for about 2 weeks a year, because they are 13 in the winter, our winter, and 11 in our summer. So when we go forward, we come 11, but at the moment we're 12 because I think they've just changed too.
Within the 2 week span now.
And just one more thing. I know that we're only doing introductions to this stage. I also say, funny enough, when I did one of the Canadian whiskey festivals a few years ago, I dragged a load of newfound friends from the Saturday night down to a pub on the Sunday to watch Manchester City win their first league title because, of course, the time difference. And we got very, very drunk, and I pissed off the organisers because I was apparently with the opposition, and I never got invited back. That's me.
I'll invite you and bring you anywhere you want to. And they won't stop us, Don. There's no possible way. And I've got you quoted as coming back anytime we want you back. So I've got that on tape here. So just
well, you're welcome. Really, I love it.
Perfect. Before I go on,
I've got a whiskey.
What's in your glass?
A whiskey.
Which one?
So this week was my Wizards of Whiskey World Whiskey Awards.
Yep.
And I announced the results. For the first time in years, I had Canadian entries. And the Canadian producer of the year was the
Macaloni.
Yeah. Do you rate them?
Well, we've had them, and we actually have. Well, let's get the camera on me for a second, and we actually have a bottling. So I'm going to get up. Don't take offense to this.
No,
so this is the company. We had our own bottling through them 3 years ago. So
cool.
It's a fantastic place. It's a great dram. We're enjoying it, and I've only got one and a little bit left from our society that we got our cask from them, and that was the second cask we've ever had. So
wow.
They've got a place near and dear in our hearts, and that's what you're drinking tonight. Which one?
No, I'm not.
Or non-peated?
I'm not drinking that.
Oh, okay.
What I'm actually drinking is I hid a bottle in the garage. It's a long story. You don't want to know. But we were clearing the garage out today, and I found the bottle, and it's the one that ended up winning the English Whiskey of the Year, which is the English Whiskey Company 11-year-old.
Oh,
that's what this is. And yeah, so I've retrieved the bottle.
What number was that? So it's 11-year-old, but what number? Do you remember? Because I have a number 6 and a number 7 behind me. But
no, they've dumped that. They've scrapped that.
Oh.
I reckon. Oh, look, we haven't had the other introductions. If you want to return to this, maybe we do this in your dram thing.
The after dram thing.
But
let's do that.
I would like to answer that because I think they've made some huge marketing mistakes from day one. Jim Murray was giving them 96 for whiskies that weren't even close to 80.
Yeah.
But I've grown up with them. They're only here 5 miles away. So I'd grown up with them. I helped them get planning permission to build the distillery in the first place.
Yeah.
So I go right back with them. And truth is, they've grown up. But they went through this chapter thing.
Yeah.
And so chapter 6, I do remember. Is it peated?
Chapter 6 and 7. One of them's peated, and I can't remember which one.
I think it's 6, and I think 7 might be a rum cask.
I'll find out. I'll pull it up for the after.
The problem they had, though, was they got to chapter 10, and then they decided to release another rum one, so they had another chapter 7, and it just didn't work as a concept. I don't know why they did it. So what they did was about 2 years ago, they rebranded entirely, new labeling, new names, and they are the first English whiskey in history to be able to bottle with an age statement over 10.
Nice. All right. So I will.
It's just called the English, the English 11-year-old. That's it.
Oh. All right. We'll remember that as a group. Beautiful. One of us will find that, and we'll get our hands on that bottle.
Yeah, it's worth it. It's very. It's got body, but it's very honeyed, very sweet and honeyed, and that
means Kent will like it. That's good. He likes this.
I'll tell you what. Time out. I'm going to shut up for 10 minutes now. So you can introduce your guest. All
right, Dave, you're up then.
Hey guys, it's Yukon Dave coming from his basement as always. I'm drinking the Nika Single Malt Miyagi-Ko. Same thing I had last week because that's all I got.
Good. And you enjoyed it, obviously, or you wouldn't be having any more.
Yeah, I am. It's got a different taste today. I get a real hint of coffee off the back note on this thing.
Nice. Jason, you're up, buddy.
Hi there, it's Jason. You can find me on Instagram at jmac_25. Today, I'm drinking a sample that I received from a friend last night. This is the Yoichi non-age statement. And again, because we're doing Whisky Japan, I'm using a Japanese drinking vessels. This one is by a friend of mine named Iwanaga Hiroshi. And I'm using this glass thinking about him because I know this guy loves to drink his whiskey. He loves sherry and port cask finished whiskeys. So this is to him.
I love the personal connection, Mac Daddy. I love that. Keep it up, man. I love it. Kent?
Hi, my name's Kent. I go by Whiskey Ass on pretty much all platforms, and I dug this bad boy out of my collection, and it's going to be a bottle kill. There's very, very little left.
Can you put the bottle back again?
Sure.
Wow. Okay.
Sherry cask. I see that. Good.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, you finish that off. I'm not finishing mine, but that's good.
Yeah, that being said, I drank enough last night.
Oh, that's okay.
Hey everyone, I'm Nick. I go by Black Cat Whiskey, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. And this afternoon, I'm working on another sample from our friend Lee. It's a Kirin Fiji Sanroku. So I'm enjoying that this evening.
All right.
Man.
Way to go. Good stuff. And I've got this KO whiskey, this cast strength, Mezzanura oak. It's and you know what? I'm enjoying it as well. And so I was really hoping, because those of you that watched the last 2 weeks, there's been repetition in our whiskey. The first week, 3 of us, I think, had the what was it called? The cast strength. The one that's right up there. You can barely see it. But then, yeah. I'm really happy that 3 of us don't have the exact same one this week, because people will start thinking we only have 2 or 3 whiskeys available to us. And Alberta's great that way. We have a lot more available to us. And we have a whiskey tasting tonight. So that's good.
If people are watching this from overseas, that's a very valid point, because you always get the impression that because of the state control thing, that Canada, you know, it's very, very limited. You have more Canadian whiskey than I think probably we do. Sorry, Japanese whiskey. I think you probably have more than we do, yeah.
And it depends on the province. Just like the states, and we have our provinces, and let's say Ontario, which is the biggest one in the country, they're able to demand certain things as a large liquor control board. Whereas we went away from that and we're privatized, and we have a lot more options available to us, but there's still things that we don't get our hands on because we can't dictate terms like an Ontario could do. So 10 million people as opposed to 2 million people buying power, it changes things. But
is Toronto in Ontario?
It is, yeah.
So that's the festival I went to.
Ah, so you would have had fun. I like Toronto. A lot of people here out west, we're a little bit mean to Toronto people, but I enjoy the city, and every time I've been there, I've had a fantastic time. And we hate the hockey team, which is what happens. It's what happens.
I had a fantastic time. The trouble was, I walked into politics that I didn't know. So the group of people who were various brand ambassadors who hadn't paid to be at the show, but made a beeline to me.
Okay.
And the organizers, because I say organizers, I think it's one woman, and she got upset that I was hanging out with guys who hadn't supported her show. I don't know, but the long and short of it is, I mean, you know, but I love the city, and I like you, I walked around, you know, I walked around and I just fell in love with the city, but the liquor stores were all a bit weird. I found it just a bit strange. It was kind of quite limited. Yeah.
They do, and they can get some special things, but it's on a larger scale that we don't get. But if you want to come to Canada and get a wide variety, we're the best province for it. We have so much, and it's beautiful. That's why I love Alberta. I really do. We have a great life here, and none of us should complain, even if we don't get certain things that we want. We're still pretty good. All right, guys. We're starting with first comment, and you know what? It's a quote. Always is. Panel. We left the Whiskey Book Club last week contemplating the tug-of-war between history and progress, past and the focus on the future with Japanese whiskey. So in the interview section with Joda Tanaka, Dom quotes him as saying this: the current boom might be due to drinkers craving something new and the fact that it's scarce. To keep the momentum and to establish the category, we as whiskey producers need to continue to show our commitment in offering genuine products. So that's page 75. And Is this their answer to becoming more genuine, to becoming 100% Japanese? And if that's what they're doing, I need you to tell me, why do they care if it's 100%? If they're selling all of their product at astronomical prices, they're making all of this profit, why did the new regulations come out? Why are they caring now? What point does devotion to money overshadow pride in your product? Because that's it. They're fighting. It's one or the other. It's like, let's just keep going with the money that we're going to keep getting. And then, no, you know what? I believe our product should be 100% Japanese. So I'm going to throw that out to everybody.
Well, I think you got to look to the future there. If you keep bringing in Scottish, Canadian whiskey and keep selling it as made in Japan, I think that's going to hurt you somewhere down the road. And I think these guys are getting bigger and they've got more inventories that they could start doing their own stuff.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'd love to be able to tell you, yeah, I made this. And I think that's the same way those guys, we made this. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, instead of lying, because we thought they made it, or a lot of people thought that they made certain things, which they weren't.
Do you call it lying, or they just don't give you all the facts?
Good. Anyone else?
I'm wondering if it's a repeat.
Pride in your product.
Is this a repeat back to the day? When I was very young, I remember a lot of production came out of Japan, much like it does in China now. And for a time being, made in Japan was not a good term. And then they switched their worldview around, and made in Japan became a symbol of quality.
Yes. And why? What happened?
What?
Well, it's world optics. It's just like now everything we're looking at made in China, because everything's gotten so cheap. Made in China has now become related to its crap.
What?
So made in Japan, they're trying to keep their name up there.
But hasn't that sort of historically happened? Their cars were looked down on, but now their cars are really good.
Yeah.
I think everything over time. I mean, they just want to do extremely well.
Yeah.
I'm not going to make the comparison for cars, because people weren't paying extra money for their cars. What's happening now is they were getting an astronomical amount of money for the whiskey they were putting out, and they at one point decided, let's stop making that amount of money, possibly. Let's put that to the side, and let's focus on 100% Japanese.
Well, I think you can actually draw the comparison against cars, because I was trying to buy a Toyota, and I went to Wetaskiwin, and the guy goes, "No, this is the price." I said, "Well, it's the same price as Edmonton." He goes, "Yeah, that's the price." I go, "Well, I thought cars cost less than Wetaskiwin." He goes, "They do, unless they're a Toyota. And we just keep the price up," he said.
Well, that's because now they have faith in their product, and it's a very well sought after product. But we're not making, because before it's not Japanese, it was coming from Scotland, it's going to Japan, they're selling it as their own. They decided to stop. They want to make it 100% Japanese, or who we talked to, or who Dom talked to, and we just quoted. Dom, what do you think?
I've made the car comparison before now. I don't think it's invalid.
There you go. Thank you.
I think the thing is that once upon a time, the Japanese were you're quite right about the history and cheap goods. I'm a massive Richie Blackmore fan. I'm wearing a Richie Blackmore's rainbow T-shirt. Deep Purple were the first band to record a live album in Japan called Made in Japan. And then Bob Dylan did it. And it became the live at the Budokan. And it became a place where, the rock fans were regarded very highly. But the car thing, the same, is that Japan is such an alien culture, even now. But then, if you only go back 20 years, it was such an alien culture that we simplified it. And we basically, having gone through we talked about this in the first session, having gone through the kamikaze pilot, banzai, we then turned them into this nation of people who just did what they were told. And the joke was, your career's over, but you're big in Japan. And the joke was that they would still love you in Japan. Spinal Tap, if you watch the film,
yep,
it ends with them big in Japan. That's exactly what happens. They end up having a big audience in Japan. So culturally, they're quite a sophisticated. No, not only quite. They're very, very sophisticated people, and we are talking in generic terms. I think Japanese, you probably can more than most countries, but we are guilty of, or I'm guilty of being racist, xenophobic. But I think you can with the Japanese to some degree. The fact of the matter is, they're incredibly proud people. You know, the reason that a managing director will kill himself rather than face the ignominy of being sacked is because it's the ultimate shame. The Japanese, there is an actual word in Japanese for the concept, and let me get this right. It's in the book, actually. You should find it, because Marcia Miller said, I bet you can't get it in the book, and I did. Okay. But it basically means something is only good in Japan if somebody from a foreign country tells him it's good. There's a word for that in Japanese. Yeah. So I think we're looking at lots and lots. I think what we saw was a nation that didn't believe in itself when it came to whiskey. Then everybody around the world was saying how great their whiskey was. Mm-hmm. So they started listening. Then, and we'll get to the question about, you know, they brought it upon themselves. But the thing, imagine suddenly everybody's telling you Edmonton is the best place on the planet. And of course you'd rent out your houses to tourists. And of course you'd put a new museum in and some, because it's natural. But then I think they reached the point where it all sold out. They realized that the world was changing, that they don't have a right anymore in the primary market because it's too expensive. The secondary market, they don't control. They don't make the profit in the secondary market, you know, your auctions and stuff. So I think they've looked at themselves and said, well, we are good. Let's make Japanese whiskey Japanese. Let's go back again and show them that we can do this on their own. Let's show that we're not an imitation of Scotch. Let's not even use Scottish products in our whiskey. So I think that's what's happened. I think it would never just be about money for the Japanese. And there's one other thing I want to say is really controversial, but I've been reading about this today, and it's ongoing. I don't know if you know that the UK has just passed rules to say we can increase our nuclear arsenal from 200 to 240. Okay, we're going back into an arms race. There's no doubt about it. We're going back into a nuclear arms race. It's really scary, really scary. But the most dangerous countries in that are United States, no particular order, United States, Soviet Union, and China. And in an area just off the coast of Japan and off Taiwan, I mean, Chinese are making a lot of noises about reinvading Taiwan, which they think is theirs. I don't know if anyone, people are aware of the history of Taiwan, but basically Taiwan, when the nationalists lost to the Communist Party in China, they fled to Taiwan and they set up a country, and they call themselves, it's a bit like Spitting Image, they call themselves like the People's Republic of China, as opposed to the Democratic China Republic, which is what the Chinese on the mainland call. But obviously the communists on the mainland, and they still claim Taiwan. And they're building all these artificial islands all around that part of the world. They're escalating their military presence. They're definitely going down the nuclear route. And Japan can't compete with any of that. So I think it's seeing itself as restoring its national pride through commerce. And whiskey now, they can compete with the best whiskey in the world, or they think they can, but they have to be able to hold it up as a Japanese product. That might be a step too far, but that's I think Japan's trying to shoot above its weight, and whiskey's helping to do it. That's my view. Okay, no, that's a fair comment. It's a good comment as well. But I'm going to play off of that a little bit, and I'm going to, because you talked about, well, my next point. They kind of deserve it, or they brought it on themselves. So here's the next quote. The stock issue is well documented, but so Marcin Miller, which is the founding editor of Whiskey Magazine, and you have a section on him, says that a combination of the difficulty creating new distilleries in Japan, for one, along with the evolution of New World distilleries, so something else, another force coming in, and the inquisitive nature of dedicated whiskey fans, could mean that the tide could start to go out for Japan, that it could go away. So maybe that's why they started the 100%, let's go for authentic Japanese. But
I did want to throw this comment out because I'm not sure about the panel or you, Dom, but I don't really feel sorry for them. They lack the stock because they profited greatly, massively from what was happening with their product. Everyone wanted it. They paid out the nose for them. And you brought this up last week. They were culling their stock back from was it England or it was just the New World? They're recalling their stock so they could resell it and make more product. So they had the capital to expand. They made the money. They had the capital to expand, limiting for time, but they're not done. With the money they had, they could have expanded far, and the companies have. Those that were already established started making massive amounts of whiskey so that they could start having an age statement soon. Is that a bad thing? Do you feel bad for them, or this is just part of business?
Guys?
Help me out.
Boy, this.
Everybody's biting their tongue right now.
Do you feel bad for them?
I'm happy to lead. I'm happy to lead, but I don't want to dominate. That's the reason I'm quiet. Is not because I'm biting my tongue. It's because I think it's better I'm sipping my drink and allowing somebody else to talk. But if you want me to answer that first, I will.
Go ahead.
Right. Yeah. If they're not jumping up, you have to sit in there. You'll
Do you feel so?
I don't think we should ever feel sorry for Japan. These people are the Japanese are incredibly intelligent, sophisticated marketing people. We talked about Suntree bars and I mean this is clever marketing. We've got a question like down the line tonight about cultures in our country and whether there's a drinking culture. And the Japanese have that because it's been brought into them. The management of those countries has managed to create an environment that people say, oh, well, they're just sheep because they went along with it. Not really, because those companies take them on holiday, they take them to the bar, they let them speak their mind. They just do things in a different way. So I agree, we shouldn't feel sorry for the Japanese because although it caught the world by surprise.
Yep.
They are more than capable of dealing. And I'll tell you what, when they do bring stock back, they'll ruthlessly take advantage of it. So I agree with you on that. So I don't have any sympathy with the Japanese. What the Japanese, what went so wrong for the Japanese was that they failed to engage properly. And they could never have foreseen the whole new world whiskey thing. So suddenly there was a Taiwanese, and it's like the story of the world. You know, China came along and started doing slave labor better than the Japanese could. So their goods were cheaper and shoddier than Japan's, and so they swept them aside. Taiwanese are making great whiskey. It is what it is. You know, the fact is that there are, you know, my awards prove this week. I could be really bitter and say, you know, why don't the Japanese enter my awards anymore? Because they're too small for them. They've moved on. And they ended up going to, I'd never get this the right way around, but they've ended up forming an alliance with Jim Beam in America. You know, this is huge. Japanese ain't going anywhere. You know, Suntree are one of the biggest whiskey companies in the world now. So.
Yeah. And we had some legend, which was the two master distillers coming together, and we had that just recently at a tasting too. And I thought lovely stuff. So, Nick, you had a comment. You were going to say something?
I was going to play off what Dom said. I think it's not a matter of we need to feel sorry for them. They've caught up and they've figured out marketing, and they've twisted the marketing to make us think that this is now where we need to focus our attention, and they've created that demand, and they've created enough of an interest that we're going to sit and wait for it.
Yep.
And they've spun it. They've spun it so your whiskey drinker is like, oh, I want this, so I'm going to wait for it. And they're catching on to how marketing has been used to, I think, customize the whiskey world and direct the whiskey world.
The only thing I'd say about that, though, is that we're all in that situation, and you've got the book in front of you. But the New World Whiskey area has moved on
Well, you were referring to a book. People might be thinking, what book are you talking about?
I love this. I just love it. Thank you, guys. No, the thing is that I think this is another generation. Every generation's trying to do something for themselves. And I think the danger for Japan is it's not readily that situation. You know, when they come back with products, all of us might be quite excited about it. But my son is 20, he's going to be 23 in May. He might be more interested in something that's coming out of Taiwan or Finland, anywhere. Yeah. Because he's discovered it for himself. And I don't think they could never have foreseen the explosion in world whiskey. What happened with world whiskey, because part of the quote we haven't talked about is that first bit that says the difficulty of opening new distilleries. Well, they are starting to open new distilleries, but Canada's got another 30 or 40, you tell me. Ireland's got another 30 or 40. How many?
We've got 200, over 200 now distilleries, and
how can
most of them are going towards whiskey too. So,
how could any one individual library? So, when I was doing this 20 years ago, I was the only person to do it. Jim was reviewing a lot in his book, but I was the only one writing about that. That was my whole point of difference to everyone else. Now, I can't keep up because I you know, when I started writing about France, I went to all the distilleries. There were 4. There's now 30. You know, so Japan hasn't got an easy run in. If their pricing is premium, nobody's going to be interested. You can get great whiskey, great whiskey for £30. What? I don't know what that is in Canadian dollars. So if they bring in new Japanese whiskey and it's 60, 70 pounds, whatever that is in Canadian dollars, it ain't going to sell.
Well, it might, because we look at the Taiwan stuff and we're paying a couple $100 for a bottle here of that. It might be 4 years old, but we're still paying. They're going to make money, but maybe not as much as they want, right? Cavalan, I know I've spent too much on Cavalan in the last year because I do enjoy it. I do.
Yeah, me too.
I think they're going to make money, and it's really interesting to see how far they will push it when they get another 18-year-old or another 12-year-old, or maybe they're 5- and 6-year-old. They'll put this the age statement on it, and it'll still carry for us probably $125, $150. So let's say 80 pounds. Is that pretty close?
Yeah. Okay. See, this is an interesting place we're in, really, because. You know, all the Jim Swan distilleries, of which I think Macaloni's is one.
It is.
But all of those, I mean, the Cotswolds have just won my English whiskey distiller of the year, 4 years old. So when the Scots say, oh, you've got to mature it 10 to 12 years because that's what it takes. Yeah, it does in Scotland, but it doesn't necessarily do that in different climates. So Japan... I don't know if they're going to. Actually, I have to say, those non-age statement whiskies that you're talking about, I think you've got one. Very, very good.
Yep.
Yeah.
I like it.
I don't know about that one. No, I thought you were talking.
Oh, I had the Yoichi non-age statement.
Yoichi.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, from Nika. Yeah. That's a really good whiskey. Yeah. That's a really good whiskey. And so Suntory's non-age statement whiskey is really good. So, fine.
Oh, let's get this off. Sorry, I've had that quote on for too long. You alluded to this too, the drinks culture. So you're really bringing up the next question. Every time you talk, Dom, it's the next question coming up. So, interest in, I don't know. Interest in Japanese drinks eventually led to the publication of Drinking Japan, a guide to Japan's best drinks and drinking establishments. It captures wonderfully the unique nature of Japan's drinking culture. So you referred to the drinking culture, and I thought this was really cool because I want to know what their culture is, and I think you've relayed that fairly well. But I'm wondering how that is different from the Canadian drinking culture, from England's drinking culture. I'd like to know the difference. So if someone on the panel could step up and tell me what you think Canadian drinking culture is, could you define it for me somehow?
Well, because I'm the oldest one here, I think going back, it wasn't unusual to go have drinks at lunch and then go out and have drinks after work in Canada. Yeah. And we just drank whatever they were serving at, like whatever was on tap, and we didn't pay much attention. I think today our culture is different. That drinking volumes is not really in my group of friends isn't going out and drinking at lunchtime and drinking after work is kind of frowned on.
So what's the culture then? Is it all craft and trying different things all the time?
Well, I got to say that I'm like in my group of friends. If we're going to have one drink, we're going to have something decent. There's still a big group of people that go out and they got to have that pipeline rum and Coke, like or Ryan 7. But I look at the Japanese one where it seems like it's almost you got to go out after work to have a drink. Like I don't know if I'm a couple years behind in Japan, but I sure saw the difference here in Canada. Like I don't know anybody that has a drink at lunchtime anymore.
Kent and Nick, do you want to add to the Canadian whiskey or the Canadian drinking culture?
Well, there's a side comment here from Nick, and I think he does hit it right. Canadians drink at home, and they drink to get drunk, where the English hang out, and drinking is a social thing. And I think there is very much that divergent where you see a lot of people going out to get drunk. There is that select grouping that go out to enjoy, but it's not so much the Canadian culture of drinking.
I think also like in Canadian culture, a lot of people would drink at home first, get a buzz on, and then go out to drink.
Yep.
To save money. But then ultimately, it just supports your point, Nick. It's like my point is we're gonna go out and get drunk, but I want to save some money, so drink at home first. Mm-hmm. Another point I've noticed about Canadian drinking culture, and I've seen this here and then compared it with travels, is Canadians always finish what's in their glass.
Oh, yeah.
Because I've noticed, like, you go to another country and say everyone's chatting and having a few drinks and it's time to go. The Canadian will pick up the glass and like, right, let's finish it and then leave. And the other people will just leave what's in their glass. And I would think, how could you waste that alcohol?
Yes.
But Canadians always finish what's in the glass. They don't leave the table unless it's done.
I finish mine and I finish my wife's. It's like everything's done. You're a good friend. I'm bringing you your drink before we go. That's funny. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah. My plate never has food on it at the end of the meal.
Yeah. That's awesome.
We were brought up
to the Japanese drinking culture dessert. Oh, sorry.
We were always brought up, finish what's on your plate before you can have dessert.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, the booze is the dessert for me. I don't have sweet stuff, so I can have an extra drink. Jason, is there anything else you want to add to the Japanese drinking culture that makes it different?
Well, I think Dave was right. For many Japanese, it's customary to go out drinking, having a bite to eat with your workmates afterwards before you go home. So the younger generation don't drink as much as the older generation. I mean, older meaning like 40 years old and up. But yeah, it's very customary to go out and socialize after work before you go home.
Okay.
And that does involve a lot of drinking at sometimes. Yeah.
Well, Dom, that goes to you. What's the England drinking culture?
Yeah, I'm listening to all this and I recognize a lot of it. I think the thing has changed a lot. Our generation, when I say our generation, I mean over 45, 50. Yep. We drink in a different way to my boys are both, they like their beer, but basically they'd probably rather have a toke of weed than loads of whiskey or stuff. So their attitude to alcohol is very different. Maybe that's my fault. Maybe they've seen the alcoholic father. staggering around and falling through windows, and thought, well, I don't want to be like that. And if that's the case, that makes me a good father.
Yeah,
you know, I've suffered for my children's health. Anyway, I do think there's been a change. I was interested to hear. I think it was you, Black Cat Whiskey, Dick, who said the English socialize when they're drinking as opposed. Not really. The thing is, I totally agree with. I personally can't leave a drink unfinished. I don't understand when you pay that much money for a pint in a pub, and then you leave half of it in the glass. Why did you buy it if you couldn't drink it? I feel like this about food in general. Actually, I think about the wastage on this planet, the number of starving people, and my daughter gets 2 pieces of toast for breakfast with jam on, and she leaves 1.5 pieces of toast. Just make her 1 piece of toast. Why are we making her breakfast she's not going to eat? I don't get it. Unfortunately, it's not great to do it at tasting. If you start going around the table saying, "Have you finished?" because I'll have the rest of it, it's not it's not professional, apparently.
apparently.
No, but the point I'll get back to is that actually, let's see tomorrow when, I don't know if you know, but tomorrow Glasgow Rangers have just won the Scottish League for the first time in 10 years and are the Protestant part of Glasgow.
Okay.
Playing Celtic, who are the classically Catholic parts of Glasgow, who've got everything for 9 years, and they play tomorrow, and they're being told no fans can turn up because of the COVID restrictions. Games at 12 o'clock, which is civil, so you can't make. Let's see tomorrow evening how much trouble there is outside those grounds tomorrow when Rangers celebrate taking the league off Celtic, and Celtic at home feel the need to defend themselves. I might be wrong, but the reality is that we drink to get drunk, really do. You know, we do that. We do that whole thing. What's that? Oh, sorry, something happened then.
Oh, Kent, we can't hear you, buddy.
You can't hear me?
No, it was Kent. We can't hear Kent. Sorry, continue there, Dom.
Yeah. So the youth in England nowadays will stay at home with friends when we were allowed to have friends in their same house, which we can't. But when we could, they would drink a bottle of vodka or a load of stuff they bought in the house. Whoever said this about your culture, this is exactly right. They go out. They don't want to pay nightclub prices. They might probably, I don't know, I don't care, take something illegal, and they go and party all night, and they don't come home to 6 or 7 o'clock. But in terms of the overall trend, there is absolutely no doubt that we're drinking far less but far better. And so we have far more young people in their 20s appreciating single malt whiskey, which when I was growing up, I drank vodka and lime and blackcurrant and soda. Oh, sorry, blackcurrant and rum and black, I think we called it. But we didn't drink single malt whiskey. Whiskey was my dad's drink. Okay. This generation, I'm an exception in my age group because not many British people of my age necessarily drink, a bit younger, drink whiskey. But this next generation, with the internet and with their blogs, they communicate and they're discovering, and what they really want to do is discover new stuff. So I think it has changed, and I think our generation is probably an absolute. My children probably think it's appalling the way I live my life.
Oh, okay. Well, our children generally think that of us anyways, and they come around at one point. I'm going to add to that, Dom, the cocktails that are being promoted now that I don't think 10 years ago were being promoted. I don't know if I've just paid attention to it just recently, but it seems like part of our culture now to indulge in the cocktails and spend exorbitant amounts of money for a cocktail. But that does take a little bit of time, and it takes some expertise to create. So I'll leave that up to anyone out there that wants to comment on that as well, because I don't know if that's brand new or not. So is it new? The cocktail, is it coming back, or has it been the same for the past 30 years? Nick's saying it has been. All right, so I'll go on to the next question.
It's coming back. It's coming back. There's, I think, always been little spots that have been cocktail strong. Like I think in New Orleans, it has a strong cocktail culture and it's historic to that city. But there's other areas where you get a resurgence. You get like San Francisco, you get New York. As the food trends change, I think so too does that cocktail culture change.
All right, good. So I'm not.
Rum and Coke as a cocktail. You count rum and Coke as a cocktail?
Yeah.
Really?
Right?
No, I would agree with Nick here. I think the thing is, it's not very recent. It's been going on for a while. When I was the editor of Whiskey Magazine, I launched a whiskey cocktail of the year competition, unheard of. I mean, you know, when I look back on it, I actually was doing quite groundbreaking things. And I had Dave Broom come along, and I got great bartenders like Nick Strangeway involved. And on the day of the final drinks, 8 drinks, 4 were cocktails where they tried to hide the whiskey and adapted vodka cocktails for whiskey, but tried to hide the whiskey. Okay. What a waste of money. Just go back to vodka. There's no point making a cocktail with a whiskey and then destroy the whiskey taste, and you could do it cheaper with vodka. The other 4 had enhanced the whiskey flavors. And if you go back to the original cocktails, I know Del DeGroff very well, and he's probably the greatest cocktail maker in America. I might be wrong, but Del DeGroff is a legend. And I spent a lot of time with him. And what started the re-emergence was going back to the very simple American cocktails. So the
like a martini type thing, Manhattan martinis, like that.
Sidecar, Sazerac.
Yeah, the sidecar.
Sours.
So when you take the whiskey and you enhance it with added things, but you don't destroy it, it's still a whiskey drink, but it's a whiskey drink that's a cocktail. That's where it started. What's happened since then is these guys have started to really, really take it to another level. And I've twice toured America. Well, I say toured, that's not true. I've twice gone to Louisville, Kentucky with bartenders who have been chosen for their ability to work with whiskey. Happen to be Jack Daniels and Woodford Reserve. So it's bourbon, not Scotch, or Tennessee whiskey, bourbon and Scotch. But they've taken these recipe over and blown people away. And America's always had that. And I just think I think it's great if it enhances the spirit, but doesn't destroy it. So yeah, it's been going on for a while, but it's totally acceptable for people to have a whiskey cocktail now and not be poo-pooed, because how could you do that to single malt? That's outrageous. You know, you're a heathen. Nobody in the industry believes that. Nobody works in the industry believes that.
So can I ask a question here? When they're doing these whiskey cocktails, they're not using a 20-year-old single malt. They're probably using, like you said, Woodford Reserve or something like that, where it's more of a value-priced whiskey.
Not necessarily. So the first time I tasted the new wave of cocktails, I went to some trendy restaurant in Mayfair, owned by some top chef. I can't remember who it was. It's so long ago now. It could have been Gordon Ramsay. It could have been anyway. I went to this place and they did cocktails. They were using Bamor. Their sauce was Auchentoshan and Bamor. You know, at the time it was Morris and Bamor. It's now part of Suntory. Okay. But they were using, and there's a place in Edinburgh, and I went to their, same guy moved up there, and they were really using the smokiness of the Bamor into the cocktail. But they were charging 15 to 16 pounds 20 years ago. If you go to the right clubs in London, there'll be drinks on the cocktails with single malts, 25 pounds. So what's that in dollars? What's that in dollars?
Too many.
40.
Yeah. So, you know, you and me won't do that. I mean, I've never been a nightclub person anyway, but, you know, if you take, what's it called? There's a nightclub in London Marussia or it'll come back to me. Anyway, it's where the royals drink. It's where the trendiest people, and you queue to get in. I've only been there once, and I was with the people who ran it. So I walked past the queue and in there, and they'll serve you a whole half a pineapple, you know, with this cocktail in it with a long straw, and it's £20. Mahiki. It's called Mahiki. Look it up. Mahiki. It's where a lot of the royal family drink. Lot of it's a VIP extraordinaire, and you queue for hours to get in. And they're charging silly money, but you know, even in lockdown, even in the recession, even with all the cuts, even with Brexit, there are lots of rich people who can afford to go to Mahiki. I actually write with one. She's called Lady Charlotte, and she is a lady, Lady Charlotte Lynham, and her job is basically writing about luxury products. So they fly her to ski every year in the Alps, and she writes about the après ski, and that's how she makes a living. I mean, what a bloody! But she makes me laugh a lot because she's very, very royal, and I'm very, very socialist. So we have absolutely nothing in common. But I'm her little rough toy boy, and she's my princess. And
That's good.
But she lives a life that you and I can only imagine. And they're the people who are buying these at top-end cocktails. So they do use single malts quite a lot.
Well, I think you just said it there. Is the regular guy buying high-end with high-end drinks made with high-end single malt?
No, I totally agree with you. No,
high-end Jack Daniels and Jim Beam and
yeah. I think you're dead right. What I'm saying is, it is done with single malts. It's not done normally with single malts. These people are very, very detached. What I'd say to you is this: that people say, Dominic, if you're a socialist, how can you possibly justify that sort of thing? And I say, well, if some Russian wants to spend, I don't know, a ridiculous amount of money buying bottles like, you know, 50, 60,000 pound bottles of whiskey in a Lalique vase, and that money goes back to Macallan in the Highlands, that means Macallan keeps its workers working because that's how they finance it, then that to me is redistribution of wealth. And that's what socialism is. I just laugh at it. I think it's laughable that people spend. I don't think I've ever spent more than £5 for a cocktail.
Oh, well, I've spent more than that too, and I'm
not really interested, to be honest. And it's not snobbery. I'm not a whiskey geek saying you shouldn't. I actually just don't like it. What mine?
And Nick actually has some friends in the city at Guru who do some great things with cocktails, and they use single malts and they use some upper scale malts as well. So I think there's niches in just about every market of people who are willing to pay a little bit extra to enjoy what other people want to create. I think that's good. Let's go. All right, so we're going to go for the last question we got for this hour, I think. And Dom, here, let's get the quote up here because I have another quote and I like my quotes. And this one took me a little bit by surprise, and I'm not really sure why. It's from a section called A Great Night Out in Dom's book. So I spend a lot of time going to bars where there's lots of whiskey fresh off the bottling line. And I would have thought kind of the opposite. I would have expected Dom to go to different bars that have 1,000 whiskeys where he could go back to 1950s and try something, but he says fresh off the bottling line. So Dom, I'm going to ask you straight out, why do you want that specifically, sir?
Well, firstly, unless you're going to send it to me for free, I can't afford 50s whiskey off the back bar. And secondly, the English measures are so small, I really worry it might evaporate before it actually gets to my lips. So the simple answer is, to me, I've always said this, it's not about price, it's about cheap, it's about value for money. And the English measure on a whiskey aged like that, we're back in the conversation we just had, to be honest. Some of these things will be on a menu for £19, £50, £20. People say, have you never tried that? And I said, have you ever given me it? And they said, no. I said, what do you think they do? Give me a budget every month. and I can just go out and buy things. Of course they don't. I only make money if I find something, write about it, and sell it. So if I spend £20 on a sample and I try and get it into a magazine, I'm going to lose money. It's just not going to happen. So that's the commercial reality. But the more emotional answer and the most important way to look at this is that I was trained as a journalist. I get very uppity when people claim they're journalists when they're not. No. Journalism is a trained profession, just like a doctor is or a lawyer is. And you can't call yourself a journalist if all you write about is provided free to you by the people who want you to write about them. I always say the definition of journalism is writing something that someone somewhere doesn't want to see written. Basically, that's what it is. So if Diageo invite me on a press trip and I get all the luxury of a press trip and then they want me to write about the whiskey they were unveiling, I'm a whiskey writer. I'm not a journalist. There's no way a journalist would do that. He goes to war in Beirut and knocks on mothers' doors when their children are dead. You know, I mean, it's a grubby profession and the bravest profession when it's done right. And I hate seeing it abused. But anyway, I'm on to a side thing. The bottom line is that every instinct in my bones is journalistic. So I want to be able to come on here and tell everybody something I haven't heard before. We've had this already, I think, 2 weeks ago when I said I reject features about subjects that have already been written about. Why would I do that? I want somebody to come to me and say, I've got something you have never heard before. And they tell you, I'll give you a great example. Tell me if I didn't tell you this story before, because I can repeat, but did I tell you about when I was in New York and Hurricane Sandy came in? No. Okay, so I was in New York when Hurricane Sandy came in. It was for the New York Whiskey Festival, and normally on the last night, Saturday night, and then everybody goes out Saturday night late, parties all night. And on that particular year, the publisher, John Hansel, said, on a Thursday, can we go out Thursday night? Because we need to fly out very early on Sunday because there's a big storm coming and we're worried about our house in New Jersey and we need to go and secure it. And he'd sold the magazine for a lot of money, and he bought a very bijou sort of place in New Jersey that was a gay couple had it and made it very, very pretty and very, very nice. And they bought it as a second home. So anyway, long and short of it is Sunday, I get a phone call from Alison Park, and she says, I've got a whiskey that you've never tasted. You think you know all about world whiskey? Well, I've got one you've never tasted. Okay. Can I let you taste it? I said, well, look, apparently there's a storm coming into New York this evening. We have to get to the airport early, but if you can get to the hotel by downtown New York by 12 o'clock, that'd be great. So Alison came down, and it was Bren whiskey. Do you know this? Bren whiskey?
Oh,
yeah. Bren?
No, she'll go get one so I can see it because I'm a visual guy. Keep going. Yeah.
So she was in. She had a drinks company in New York, and she somehow found a producer of. There it is, the light blue label.
No, we've seen that. Yes.
Yeah. So Alison managed to find a producer of whiskey in the Cognac region of France. I really think there's a lot of cognac still in that cup. She would say it's the terroir. She would talk about the fact that it's just naturally out of the cup. That whiskey is very, very floral, very light, very sexy. And there's Alison. She gets to the hotel and she's telling me this, and I tasted it. I'm blown away. I didn't think anybody at that time, I'm talking, look up Sandy, whatever year that was, Hurricane Sandy. I never thought anybody would be able to tell me about a New World whiskey, especially in France, and certainly not from New York, but she did. So anyway, long and short of it was I was out the last flight out of New York. I was one of the last flights, and I then watched where I was staying being buffeted by Hurricane Sandy for a week. Most of the other journalists got stuck there, probably would have finished me off because I had no other income, no electricity. So, anyway, that was what I got on that plane, and I was buzzing. I was scared because I was flying over a hurricane.
Yep.
As it is, you go above the hurricane. It's not actually a threat to a plane because you go above it. But the whole thing was very, very dramatic. You know, the winds were up when we got to the airport. I watched the queue of planes, and they let all the American flights out first. So I was one of the last flights to leave. And you wake up the next day, done the, what do they call it, the red-eye flight. And the next day I watched, my family were at work or school or whatever, and I just sat there absolutely transfixed on what was happening to New York in that storm. John lost his house. He lost his entire house. His first thing he knew was they flew over the part of the beach in New Jersey where his house was, and it had gone completely flattened.
And you watched it after the fact, safe and sound from your home.
Yeah, but not safe and sound, just feeling really, really, really messed up because it's also really, but it's a bit like watching 9/11. You know, when you watch images you can't quite take in.
Yeah.
Because it's
processing.
Yeah. The processing doesn't happen because your mind's just not able to understand what actually is happening. You have to see it repeated. I always wondered why they repeated the same pictures. I think you just have to see some things 40, 50 times before your brain actually accepts. Yeah. So anyway, to go back to the point, that's what I love in my job. Discovering whiskey, telling people. I mean, Alison will tell you now that if I come to New York tomorrow, she will turn up at my events because I was the first to write about her. I totally supported her. I kept up with her for a long time, and it's the same with a lot of the Australians. That's what I really get off on. I get off on taking people's stories, spreading them, and those people knowing that that's what I've done. I've had testimonials all week because I'm scrapping the Wizard of Whiskey Awards, so my awards are being scrapped. And when I told all my winners I was scrapping them, they all turned around and said, please don't, Dom. You know, you've done so much for world whiskey. You're the only one that's independent, blah, blah. So that's what drives me. So the answer to the question is, which I can't remember what it was, but it was something about what motivates you. What was the question originally?
It was about getting whiskey off the bottling line, why you like getting it fresh.
That's the answer. And the other side of it is, I think there's this is a long answer. I think we've gone way past where we should be. There's a very, very fine line between, and that book's classic for this, like, hello, I've had all this whiskey, you can't have it. And I look at my fantastic life and you can't. Or, hey, guys, this is a great place to be. You may not get this bottling, but watch out. I'll give you an example of that. Kilcara won the Australian Malt Whisky of the Year, and it's very exciting for Killara. It's very exciting for me because the woman who runs and owns the distillery is Christy Lark, and her father's Bill Lark. So I've gone through from first-generation Australians to second-generation Australians. Now, the bottle I gave the award to, you can't buy. It's sold out. Sold out ages ago. But I have said online, there'll be more coming. And when it comes, get it. Because it's brilliant, and it is brilliant. So that's straight off the bottling line. It's a single cask strength whiskey that sold out nearly immediately. So that's what motivates me more than anything else. And you know what? No whiskey. I mean, it's great to taste whiskey nobody else can taste. Sometimes there's people online, I'm thinking of one individual who I won't name, but he says things like, what's your favorite champagne? The 1977 Moet, or the... You think, who are you talking to? What people?
Not me.
Are talking about vintage champagne. And what sort of world? And he's in whiskey, and he just says in whiskey stuff. And I pick, when I've had a few drinks like tonight, and if he says it tonight, I'll just send a thing back saying, really? I know the guy. I was a mentor to him at one point, but he's in that world, and I don't want to be part of that world. I don't want to tell people I'm enjoying a rare whiskey you can't have, because your other supplement parts of the question were, would you do it with friends, etc.
Yeah. Oh no, we're gonna get to that in the after dram. We
okay. Sorry,
but,
anyway,
but I'm gonna cut you off because Whiskey Brothers and Sisters, it's a hour 5, whatever it is. But that's the Whiskey Book Club. We're moving the conversation from this more formalized format to a more relaxed, equally engaging, colorful conversation. Dom will say what he wants. People will be naked. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? We'll be here. We'll be on camera. 5 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. But author Dominic Roskrow of this book right here, Whisky Japan, The Essential Guide to the World's Most Exotic Whiskey.
Oh, hold it.
Definitely going to be with
get
us.
on with it, man.
That's the one thing. And really, what better activity is there than talking whiskey and spending time with great people? So you should really be there. 5 minutes. It's what it's going to be. Come back to this channel. And if you don't want to miss a minute of it, especially our next Whiskey Book Club, April 3rd, we're doing this book right here, Andrew Jefford. Click the like, click subscribe, and we'll see you. Yeah, this will be fantastic. We're doing
Have you got Andrew on?
Yes. April 3rd.
I haven't spoken to him for years and years. When I did my Advocates of Malt Whiskey course at Diageo, when I started, Andrew was on the same group, and that book, he's a wine man, really, and that book wasn't out. Send him my very, very best regards. Say, absolutely see him up there in lights. I rate him so highly.
But I want you to come on. I want you to comment on the side so I can say something to him. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, sorry, I digress. Come see us in the after dram. 5 minutes gives us a chance to refresh our drinks and do whatever else we have to do. And we will see you all then. Thank you very much and have a very good afternoon. But come back in 5. That's what we should do. Ciao, everybody.